Welcome back to Sacred Web Connections. I'm your host, Dara Bracamonte. Much love and light to you all.
Hi guys, we are back with a beautiful soul, an author named Ruhe Bayors. That's R-U-H-E, Bayors, B-A-Y-O-R-S. And she's written a book called Soul Gardening. It is such a beautiful, inspirational book. I highly recommend it to anybody who is just in need of a little extra love, some inspiration, positive, beautiful stories that help you think and rearrange some of the things that you might be thinking that are negative and turn those into a plus and positive. Beautiful writer, beautiful book. Highly recommend it. You should go out and get it today. You can actually find it at Amazon, many places, but Amazon, it is for sale, paperback, $18.51, and hardcover, $31. So well worth the money. So first of all, let me introduce Ruhe Bayors. I want to ask, can you give us a bit of a summary on how you came to be so spiritual?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be on your wonderful podcast. Honestly, I was brought up in a Christian family. It was a very loving Christian family. And as I grew up, there were the studies of human consciousness, and spirituality books started to flow into our world. And of course, there are other New Age information and seminars that came out. And for me, all of those things just merged together, that along with science and all the new technology. For some reason, this all made sense to me in coming together. And that's how my spirituality developed out of what started as just a Christian childhood.
And so do you think that the way you were brought up, do you think that's what sort of got you on the spiritual path, or do you think that you would have found it if you had no religion in your life?
I think that when people are brought up with some introduction to God, they always have that in their inner core. And I think it's easy for them in later life to revisit that knowledge of God and that understanding. I do feel that if someone is not brought up with some sort of God background, I'll say, I think they lean more toward spirituality when they start seeking understanding and, why we are the way we are and what their purpose is. I think they lean more toward the spiritual side of things as opposed to a religious context.
That is a great point. I totally makes sense. I was raised without religion. Nobody was super religious in my family, and so any church that I went with friends, just for the fun of it. And it was really interesting. And the one thing that I felt like I was missing when I went with friends was more of an understanding of the background, the books, the parables, the everything, So I kind of wish I had a little bit more of that under my belt. Now more so that I can speak more intelligently about the difference between religion and spirituality. I love hearing about and learning about both and all. So interesting to me, but I think it is really interesting that people that were brought up in church or some sort of religion do have at least that background or foundation, like you said, to go back to. So that's really beautiful. So what made you want to write a book?
I think somewhere inside of me, I always wanted to do that. I would write stories as a child. When we had assignments in school, it was easy for me to pull up with adventures of what I did, during my summer vacation or what was going on with my little life. But I got to college, and I just realized this a few weeks ago, but there was a paper that I wrote for a psychology class called The Psychology of Religion. And my professor at the time told me that someday I ought to turn it into a book. And I had to wonder if soul gardening wasn't a product of that interest I had way back in college.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be something? You planted a seed.
Well, that's exactly right. I planted a seed with soul gardening.
Oh my gosh. I mean, talking about synchronicities, I love how all of that works out. The universe is so good. I love calling it divine timing because everything happens exactly when it's supposed to. And I know you know that.
I do. I absolutely agree with you there. I discovered the title Soul Gardening years after college and knew that was the title of the book I was going to write. I also tried to write the book at that time. I was laid off from my work and tried to spend time writing as much as possible. But in hindsight, it just wasn't the right time. I couldn't get it done. I was never happy with what I wrote. It just wasn't the right time. And suddenly, 3 years ago, it was exactly the right time.
I love it. And a little bit later, I'm going to ask you to share that story because I think it's so beautiful and inspiring. But I do want to ask, what kind of book is this? Like if you were, to give an elevator speech, what would you say about this book?
I would say that this book would help somebody reconnect with some sort of religious root they might have had as a child. It could be a wonderful introduction to people who are curious about God and the world and spirituality. This is me on a plate. This is my childhood. These are the things that I think about and wonder about in my daily life. So if you want to get to know me, soul gardening is the perfect introduction. But my perspective about spirituality and religion and God is that everything is based on love. In my experience, if one's heart is open, the answer to every single question is love. And it takes some work to get there. We all have things to learn in our lifetime, things to overcome. But if one can get to a place where we understand how incredible life is, this gift of life, if we can understand the love that it took to create us, create our universe, there's just no other direction to go in. It's all very, very beautiful.
Oh, I absolutely agree. So as I was going through this book and reading it, I love that each chapter is sort of a different lesson. It's a different story. It's a different level of understanding when it comes to spirituality, things that are going to teach you how to connect more easily, how to be happier in life. So it's like every chapter is a lesson, and what I was doing earlier, and this totally works. I love using books like tarot cards sometimes. But, when you're having a tough day or you're having a tough moment, this is the kind of book where you can pick it up, you can flip to a chapter, and just read that chapter. And it'll be the perfect chapter for you in the moment that you needed to hear that message. So is that kind of what you intended, is for each chapter to be kind of a different message or different lesson?
I agree with you that this book is exactly perfect for that. I did write it over a 3-year period and literally was writing most weekends, because I worked during the week. And so it flowed with the different seasons and perhaps memories I had of childhood during a particular season. But I started to delve into things that I needed to do more research on. So it was quite a lesson for me as well in the writings. And though it's 3 years of my life, it is perfect for just opening that book and grabbing a little story. None of them are too terribly long, so you can get a message quickly. And I tried to be, very positive in my thinking and very positive in writing the stories so that we could all end up with something to smile about and think about after the chapter's done.
I love that. And there is 106 chapters, so 106 different lessons that you can turn to at any given time that are going to help you on your spiritual path, in your life path. Love that. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm sure it was just as much fun writing it and just as much learned as what you're trying to teach as well. I love that we're all students and teachers in life. So how do you think this book can help or inspire people?
Well, I've always enjoyed hearing the stories or reading the stories of other people and their experiences. And I think that when we share our lives with each other, we learn from each other. It's like the stories illuminate a path for us. Do we agree with it? Do we not agree? Does it resonate with us or not? But I think that's one of the important ways that we can learn and we can grow in this lifetime. So if my story can touch someone else's life, if it can touch their soul and help provide any hope and understanding, then I've done something absolutely incredible, and I would consider it just a gift that I'm trying to share with the world.
It is, and it is such a wonderful gift, and so are you. You are a beautiful soul and radiate love and understanding and calm and peace and joy, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And it's odd sort of how we met, too. We met at work, like 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago when we met, and instantly we connected. I knew you were a soul sister, and we didn't even talk after that. I mean, we talked, during that time just for a few days, and then we didn't talk for 10 years, and here we are now living in the same city, which is so odd, and of course, another synchronicity, and I'm just so grateful that we found each other again, and a lot of the things that we believe in and think about are so similar, and I love that you're giving back, in whatever way that you can.
That's Dakota saying hello. He's on the picture right there, too. So.
Oh, that's perfect, Dakota. See, he's like, I should be in this, too. That's my picture.
Exactly right.
Just so you guys know that may be happening a little bit. We might have some visits from Dakota barking in the background, and that's okay. Rue is an animal lover, avid animal lover, definitely a soul animal person at heart. So if Dakota says hello, don't mind Dakota. Just saying hello and love. And what I love, too, is, after getting to know each other a little bit better, is this is going to sound odd, but you're just an average person, right? You're just a normal, average American, and it's not like you grew up in the riches or in the slums. You didn't have a super tough life, but you didn't have a perfect life either. I mean, you are just like the rest of us, and that's what I love, is you bring that down-to-earthness into your writing, and it's so beautiful. Do you think, this is totally off topic, but it's popped in my head and I have to ask, do you think there are gardens for you to tend to in the afterlife?
I hope so. I mean, it's all still a mystery. We have our suspicions of what happens to us after. We have stories that are told that this is what you're going to get, whether it's a mansion or going through a pearly gate or whatever. I mean, there's lots of different versions of what might happen. There are books written that, the White Book, I believe, written by Ramtha, who's a spirit, says that you're going to get in the afterlife exactly what you believe you're going to get, which I find an interesting concept. But I think our eternalness, our energy, I think it carries forth forever. And I think there are different roles for us to play going forward. And if there's a garden for me to tend, I'm more than happy to do it, because I think that having a garden and tending to it is the ultimate act of faith and love.
I did read that chapter, too. That was great, about gardening is an act of faith and love, because you plant, and then you love, and you hope, and you give, and you wait, and you see what happens.
Nobody plants a seed without believing that a plant is going to come out of that seed.
I love that. And I'm sure, too, on the other side in the afterlife, that there are plenty of metaphorical gardens to tend to as well. Like you were saying, like the different roles that we're going to play afterwards. Maybe we'll come back as spirit guides. Maybe we don't come back. Or, maybe we go off to some other planet. Who knows? But it is fun to think about all those things, all the possibilities of what we think is going to happen after we leave this earth. So do you have any advice for people who are struggling right now with negative emotions?
Oh, I hope I could offer some hope. I do believe in soul gardening mentions this a lot, but I have seen, I experience that what we perceive is how our life happened. So in other words, look at the current situation we're in the world. Some people will say, we're stuck at home. And anybody that hears that feels that, oh, yes, that's a terrible thing, right? There's the negativity right there. That's a terrible thing. We're stuck at home. The positive person is going to say, we are safe at home. How much more hope is in that sentence that is the same as the other, but on the positive side? We're safe at home. It makes you want to stay home. So we're each on a different path. We each handle negativity in different ways, and I say play the what-if game. What if the opposite of what our negativity tells us is really what's true? What if we really are loved? What if we really do have a choice? What if the world is filled with love and guidance and protection? If we believe that, that's what we'll see in the world. If we don't, we'll see the opposite. So let's give it a try. Let's try to see the love that perhaps we haven't felt or we're not feeling right now.
I absolutely agree. I mean, what you perceive about the world is what you're going to experience. I mean, if you think the world is awful and nasty and out to get you, that is exactly what your life is going to feel like. You know, and I've been on both sides, so I totally understand. And it does take, you know, some work, and you do have to, quote unquote, do the work to get to where you want to go. But once you get there, and once you make that positive thinking a habit, oh my God, it feels amazing. Like, I cannot imagine what my life was like before.
The world is a completely different place. You know, we're talking a little bit about religion and spirituality, and some people have that as a part of their life, like they're a fan for a team, or, oh, they had an experience of going to a class, they had the experience of some sort of, you know, religion or spirituality. If you bring those spiritual feelings into your life and make it your life rather than a little tiny part of it, you're going to feel more positive, and you're going to understand that you are loved and you are guided and you are protected. And it gives you a different way of presenting yourself to the world. You're confident because you're loved. You feel safe moving forward in the choices you make because you know you're guided. It's a world of difference, and it opens up a world of love for anyone that wants to give it a try.
Yes, and this book is trying to help people do that too. It's trying to uplift you and just get you to think in different ways. If your perception is creating your reality, and your reality is shit, then maybe it's time to change your perception. I mean, I talk about this a lot, obviously, in my podcast, because I'm such a believer that you create the world around you. And actually, to quote your book, I do want to read a little piece from chapter 2, which kind of falls right in line with this. And you wrote, I do try and pay attention and listen to what is going on around me. And Lord, I know you're hearing my prayers. I would rather respond to one of your whispers than get hit on the head with a 2x4 because I was not paying attention. And I want to ask you, do you think that is what's happening right now? Is the coronavirus the 2x4?
Well, that's a really good and interesting question. I think this world and, you know, Mother Nature has her ways of creating. I don't think that any sort of God or source or whatever we call that great spirit, I don't think there's any negativity that ever comes from that source. I think that the negativity and the, if you want to call it evil, I think it comes from ignoring the good and ignoring the love. Nature does what nature does. Nature has thunderstorms that either create havoc or creates a wondrous display of her power. The thunder, the lightning, we can enjoy it, but it can be deadly too. Again, it's how we perceive it. But I don't think that evil is cast upon us. I think this is the earth that we live on, the planet, that has nature happening around it. And we can choose, for example, to build houses in floodplains, which has happened in our country. Floodplains that we knew existed 100 years ago, but decided to expand to and build there. And those people are the ones that suffer from great floods that didn't have to happen, but man allowed. The virus, I'm sure there's something in nature that will be found that can prevent this virus from attacking humans. I believe that all diseases have a cure within the plant or animal kingdom.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. And based on your excerpts, totally understand what you're saying. And that is, you know, if you run yourself ragged on a daily basis and you don't give yourself and all of your bodies, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies a chance to rest, you're going to get hit in the head by a 2x4, obviously not literally, but energetically. You're going to get hit, and maybe you're sick for a week. Maybe you're sick for 2 weeks. Maybe people that haven't taken a break in 10 years, they're getting forced to take a break right now because of the coronavirus. I think there's a lot of good coming out of it, just as much as there is, negative emotions and thoughts about it. But I think collectively, we're all giving into this global consciousness of fear before the virus even hit. And it was sort of Mother Earth's way of slowing us down. I don't think that it was an intentional hit or hurt. Obviously, I don't think anything negative comes from source energy, whether it's Mother Earth, Father Sky, whatever you want to call it. But it does feel like we didn't listen to our own intuition about slowing down and relaxing and enjoying life more and not focusing on so many of the material things, focusing more on connecting with people, and that's what's happening right now. I do feel like it was the 2x4 that we kind of needed to slow down a little bit and also look at what are we doing to Mother Earth, because so many more people are thinking about that right now.
With just a couple weeks gone by, with factories closing and people not milling around by the thousands, we've seen the skies clear over China. We've seen the canals in Venice clear from the mud has sunk to the ground and the fish are back. We've seen Mother Nature recreating herself and healing herself. Now, of course, my hope would be that the folks that are safe at home will take this time to learn more about their families that previously were rushing around and having their own lives in every different direction. But now they can come together and hopefully learn something from this experience of solitude and connection and working together. You can only hope.
Absolutely. I've been watching and addicted to really TikTok. I don't know if you've been on there yet, but there's 60-second or 15-second videos that people post, and it's amazing how many people are doing different little dances and songs and writing books and writing poems and just all these activities that parents are doing with their children. And not just that, these kids, these teenagers that are too cool for mom and dad, right? They are inviting their parents to do these things with them. They actually want that interaction and that connection and that connectedness. So it is actually really beautiful to see, and I don't think it's something that we would have seen, had coronavirus not come about, at least for a while. So I do think there is definitely some beauty in what we're experiencing right now, too, as hard as it is to get past the fear, I know. I also want to talk about your Chapter 4. So in Chapter 4, you wrote this story about a little girl who would have been crushed, basically, if one small thing had changed directions that day. Had the dog not been lost, and if she had been in bed on time, it would have been fatal, more than likely. So I think this story is helping people to understand that it's time to think differently. I love the message in this chapter. I really do believe that everything happens for a reason. It's much easier and better feeling for you if you choose to think of these mishaps or mistakes as something that was necessary for your safety, security, health, and or happiness. So can you expand more on the message that you're portraying in that story about the little girl?
Sure. I believe the name of that is So You Want to See a Miracle. I'll tell you, that day, it was long before I really dug into spirituality and really made it a part of my whole life. So when that friend of mine and I couldn't go to make this appointment, to buy some furniture, it was really ticking me off. It's like, I promised this other person we'd be there. What do you mean we can't find the dog? Well, this dog had escaped my friend's home. The dog was blind. So how did the dog get out? Where did the dog go? There were storms that had been going on all week. There was just a whole plethora of things that were happening and interfering with what our plans had been. And when it turned out that this little dog ended up across the street, up a hill on some muddy slope, it was ridiculous. How can this even happen? How'd you get out of the house, but how'd you get across the street? How'd you get up the hill? How'd you get behind the house? Well, it did entertain the entire neighborhood eventually. You know, and everybody was out there trying to save this poor little muddy blind dog. But the little child, I guess she was just a couple years old, was so fascinated by the dog that she didn't get put to bed. The blessing in all this was a tree fell on what was her bedroom window, exactly where her little bed was. So all the things hours earlier had to happen with a blind dog getting out of a house by herself somehow, running up into the hills, getting around behind a house, attracting attention at the exact right house. To me, it's a lesson in you never know why something is happening. Maybe you're going to be the miracle in somebody else's life by doing something that you never dreamt you'd be doing. So rather than being angry if you forgot something at home or being angry that you can't get to an appointment, maybe it's saving you from something. Maybe you're helping to save somebody else. Think of yourself as part of the miracle, and it might help you make your day feel a little better.
That's so beautiful, and I love that story. And I'm sure you as well have experienced so many synchronicities in this life and things that we would call miracles. And, you know, some people wouldn't even see these things. They wouldn't even see what was happening right in front of them. And they certainly wouldn't see it as a miracle because of the negative thinking that gets ingrained in the psyche. And it's a habit. It's a horrible habit and really hard to get rid of. But I think it's necessary for happiness. But yeah, it's like these things happen for a reason. And just because you don't know the reason doesn't mean there wasn't a good one.
Right. I've tried to give up trying. It's going to happen, whatever it is, whatever. If I miss a plane, if I miss an appointment, I look at it as I'm being saved from something that would have been unpleasant or dangerous or something. And I just say, thank you. I'm grateful you're looking out for me because that's, I'm sure, what's going on. Saves me from a lot of stress, too, actually.
I was going to say, it's such a great feeling to think that you're being guided and being kept safe along the way versus you're alone and lonely, you know?
It can make you brave enough to write a book. Who knows?
Right. I know you never thought you'd be writing a book. I mean, maybe you had a pull to, but to actually write a book, publish it, and now it is out for the world to see, how do you feel about that?
I just feel blessed. And when I heard that the publishing house had said, okay, you're officially published, rather than throw a party, I just wanted to sit at home and be grateful, as grateful as I could possibly muster. I was just filled with gratefulness and appreciation, and I was blown away by the fact that this, actually became a book. It's what I promised to do. Of course, there's another dog in this story because of a dog that got misplaced, we'll say, in an effort to get her returned to her rightful owner. I told God I wanted to call in a favor, right? Like God owed me anything. I said, if you will let Sophie be returned to her owner, I'm going to write that book I've always wanted to write. And lo and behold, little Sophie was returned, and I was on the hook for a book. Soul gardening is alive and well.
Thank God.
In a word.
Literally.
The truth is, I have a God thing in this life, right? It's how I was brought up in a very loving Christian home, right? There were no threats. There was no punishment about religion. My family just loved God, and that's what they taught me. So that's my perspective on God and religion. It's not something I ever wanted to throw away. So I use God where other people use energy or source or great spirit or any number of different names. I just call this universal law, I call it God.
Did you hear the podcast that I did with Kim on From Religion to Spirituality?
Oh, I sure did.
And, it hurts so good. No, it was really deep, and it's such a huge difference between somebody who was raised in a loving Christian home who didn't teach about the fear but taught about the love versus Kim, who grew up in and a lot of fear and control and just horrible, horrible feeling. I can only imagine.
Yes, it is. I think that's where people want to throw all of it away. And what they're doing is they're throwing the bad parts away, but they're throwing away the good parts. They're throwing away the God and the love and the protection, right? It's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Look at what you were unhappy with. Look for those things that resonate with you. Look for the love and keep with you those things that make sense and those things that are wonderful experiences. It's no surprise they want to get rid of it and not touch it. It's no surprise that people are afraid to look at what their feelings are about religion and what their feelings are about this thing called God, because they see it as a punishment. They see it as God being angry with them when things go wrong. Now, again, it's the perception of, there's all this evil and things are against you and you're a victim and, you can't get ahead, but it's change your perception. Work on it a little at a time. It's not easy. We don't all start out there. We have to find our way there. That's how we learn and that's how we grow, and we share that growth with the people that we love, and we teach them how to be in the world, and we teach them how beautiful the world is, how we can create a heaven on earth.
And thank you for helping us do that. This book really is helping to create a heaven on earth. I know that them are some big words, but really, anything that you can read, see, hear, talk about with your friends, family, whatever, that makes you feel good and makes you think about life and what you can be doing to help change your perception so that you can be happier, I am all for. And this book, I think, can be very healing to a lot of people.
That would certainly be my hope, and I hope it brings a few smiles along the way as well.
Oh, there's no way you can't smile reading this book, any part of it. So can you do us a favor and actually read Chapter 5 for us?
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks for asking. It's called Guardianship. Are we responsible for our souls? Have they been put into our care while we travel as humans on this earth? How can any act, any choice influence our soul? We may argue that nothing can change the fact that our souls will live on eternally, and I agree. However, I wonder if we can make choices which might alter the journey our souls take. Do we decide on the course of our lives, or do we choose? I like to think that prior to being born, each soul meets with God, and He asks us to be challenged by certain things in this life we will have on earth. It is our decision, and many of us will say, "Yes, Lord, I will do it for you." Of course, I also think that once we get down here and go through some of these experiences, we may ask ourselves, what was I thinking? Circumstances are different for each of us as we come into the world. Gender, race, location, poverty, riches, the list goes on and on. Ultimately, though, it is our choice how we live our lives and how we see life. Consider the possibilities if we each realized how powerful choice really is. What will you choose? I choose to live my life in the full expression of God's love. I choose to surrender to God's timing of my life's events, knowing that everything that happens is for my protection and my guidance. I choose to accept my life's purpose as a gift from God. I choose to be a channel through which others can feel God's love. I choose to surround myself with loving people who have an awareness of the loving God. I choose to accept my humanness and the humanness of others. I choose to remember that I am held firmly in the hands of God. I choose to be true to myself. I choose love.
Oh, thank you so much. It's one thing reading it, but to hear it in the words of the person that wrote the words, oh, thank you. That's beautiful. Are there any other chapters that you absolutely love and you think would be really helpful right now for people to hear that you would be willing to read for us?
I would love to read chapter 100.
Absolutely, please.
It is called Kintsugi. I'll explain what that is in the chapter. Humans sometimes say they feel broken. A part of their lives has fallen apart and moving forward is painful or seemingly impossible. If this is happening to us, we can be consumed with what got us to this immovable place. The obstacle may be ours, or it may belong to someone we love, because we also feel broken when we cannot fix someone else. How do we start to feel whole again? How can we make our days less racked with worry and concern and change our nights back into what used to be peaceful sleep? We long for a magic wand to sweep the broken pieces into a distant past we no longer remember. Yet there is something to be said for war wounds and the battle scars of what we have already survived. If we are still here, we have truly survived what may have been the very worst period of our lives. It doesn't matter if they are physical, emotional, or mental scratches, scrapes, or trauma. They are evidence of survival, of endurance, of persistence. A coworker of mine once was so embarrassed by the scar running down her chest from heart surgery that had saved her life. She didn't have the perspective that she was a warrior and should be proud of that battle scar, as she had survived so much. Perhaps we are perfectly broken because we are designed to be that way. We are created in the image of God, and because we are human, we will always have faults. We will have emotions we do not know how to handle or how to show. We will have reactions we don't know how to control, and feelings some say we should not have. We may display our anxiety and pain in ways that are not socially acceptable. And then there are the medical issues and addictions that add to our struggles and pains. Maybe we should look at what happens to us in this life as part of our learning process that was created for us. We are to grow. We are to learn and hopefully heal and teach others a better way to be present in this world, therefore stopping the hurt and pain from being passed from generation to generation. The process of living and learning and fixing ourselves often makes us incredibly beautiful human beings who just happen to have many memorable events happening in their lives. Who doesn't love a resurrection story? Look at the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired by mending the cracked and broken areas with gold, silver, or platinum. This technique was not designed to hide the damaged areas, but to highlight them. This art, believed to have begun in the late 15th century, allowed for ceramic vessels to continue to stay in use rather than be thrown away. The faulty areas were embraced and made to be a part of the beauty of the object. That which was thought to be defective or broken is actually incorporated and elevated. Aren't humans worth valuing in the same way?
Yes, it's so crazy how we are so ingrained with this need to be perfect and look perfect and beautiful, and we forget, I think we've forgotten along the way what beauty really is, and that is way beyond the skin, right? Way beyond the outside of the body. Oh, such a beautiful, beautiful chapter. I love that one. And I love the kintsugi. I never knew that's what it was called, but I actually really love that style of art. So it made perfect sense.
Well, we're all beautiful. We just don't know it. We all have
That's
incredible
right.
stories and amazing experiences, and we need to do more to share that.
I think a lot of people are afraid that once people get to know the real them, that they won't be loved anymore. And I think it's the absolute opposite. I think the more authentic and genuine you are as a human being, the more people connect to you and fall in love with you for just who you are.
Well, we fear vulnerability probably more than anything. And that's actually what makes us most beautiful.
Completely. And something else I wanted to ask, you have another chapter that I would love for you to read if you wouldn't mind.
You name it.
Chapter 10, Going Deep, I think is so relevant for what we're going through right now that I think it will really hit hard.
Okay. Going deep. The dictionary's definitions for thankful and grateful are virtually interchangeable. The words are very different for me. Dictionaries cannot adequately put words to the emotions that mean so much to us. Thankfulness or gratefulness can be very emotionally charged, and words don't often suffice. Normally, I don't use the words "I'm thankful" unless it's the beginning of a sentence at a Thanksgiving table. Thank you to me is used predominantly as a simple acknowledgement of something someone else did, said, or gave. A gesture, if you will. It is a socially acceptable way to display appreciation, lacking in feeling and intensity. It is a small kindness expressible to anyone at any time. Thank you for holding the door open. However, when I use grateful, it is because I have a sincere feeling of the value of what I have been given. So when I say I'm grateful to someone for something, it is a much deeper, much more personal appreciation because I have internalized the gratitude. In the past several years, a lot has been said and books have been written about being grateful. Gratitude journals are de rigueur in this enlightened age. I do not have one. Please do not misunderstand. I believe gratitude is more than just fashionable. It is a necessary part of a healthy, normal life. But I also believe that making a list at the end of the day is simply that, a list. A list is a list is a list. Make all the lists you want, shopping lists, honey-do list, gratitude list. Do it every single day, and it will just be a list unless you go deep. And when you do go deep, you will not need that list any longer. Let's look at these lists for a moment. When you put items in your gratitude journal, do you feel them for more than the minute it takes to write them down? Do they bring you joy as you write? Can they make you weep just by thinking of them? Do you feel the love that is such an integral part of that gratitude? Going deep means that you touch the deepest part of your emotional being. We may not always like it, but we are emotional beings. God has given us a plethora of emotion as part of our human makeup. We don't seem to be very fond of many of these emotions. The happy, joyous, pleasant ones are a hit, but not so much the others. We need to learn to be grateful from deep within our hearts. Doing this will not only make gratitude work for us, but it will also have some incredible side effects. If I truly believe that I am protected and guided, a theme here in soul gardening, then I will find the things that show me exactly that. Prior to asking for, and I believe receiving that protection and guidance, I have had experiences where I have forgotten my credit cards at home and was forced to return there before I could continue my journey. I would get so very angry at myself. I would swear and slam doors and just become totally stressed out that my plans had taken an unpleasant turn. Let's say traffic on any given day was not cooperating, as I was going to be late for an appointment. Frustrated? Oh yeah. Ticked off? You bet. Enter the possibility of gratitude attitude, the mindset where you can live your gratitude. I have learned and now choose to know that yes, I am protected and guided every single day. In that choosing, I can find peace and even comfort in forgetting something at home that requires a stop back there. I can say okay to a traffic jam. Why? Because God doesn't want me on the road just yet. Or He's holding me tight in a certain spot. He's keeping me safe on my journey, which is exactly what I asked Him to do. So the other day I had an appointment in the city 2 hours away, and when I stopped at a station for gas and the card reader didn't work, I wasn't happy to get back into the car and drive to the next station. There the card reader worked, but the pump itself didn't work. So off I went to the third pump, which only provided about 6 ounces of gas at each click of the handle. The frustrated feeling started to rise because I did not leave enough time for all this foolishness. But then I looked upwards and said, I get it. You don't want me on the highway just yet. So I stood there and patiently pumped the gas 6 ounces at a time until my tank was full. And I also said, I'm so grateful you are watching out for me. The side effects I mentioned, choosing a gratitude attitude can not only bring peace and comfort knowing that we are taken care of, but it can also eliminate the stress, anger, and frustration of a situation where we are not in control. It has changed my life going deep with the emotion of heartfelt appreciation. It has created a way for me to feel the love of being protected and cared for by my loving God.
Thank you so much for reading that. I think right now people can really, really learn how to be an attitude of gratitude more than what they are thus far. And I think it changes your life in so many ways. If you can learn to live in a state of gratitude, you will feel so much better about life. I certainly feel protected and guided along the way. I wish that more people felt that, like had the knowing and the 100% truth in your heart and your mind that you are protected and guided. It doesn't feel so alone.
When you know you're loved, you're more confident and you're more gentle with yourself and with others.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about a list is a list is a list. Like we can sit here and write gratitude journals, like I'm so grateful for blah, blah, blah. And yes, you're right. When you're sitting there writing it, some people are doing it because it's an obligation or a task, or they feel like that's what it is. Some people are doing it because, yeah, if I do this, then my life will be better. But you're right. They spend 2 minutes while they're writing it thinking about what they're grateful for, and then that's it. They move on with their day. And some people don't even get to the feeling part of it. They're thinking about it. They're writing down their thoughts. But you're not feeling about it. You're not going deep and feeling what you're grateful for. I do have an exercise to suggest too. Instead of just sitting there and listing out what you're grateful for, go into meditation, every day for 10 minutes and allow yourself to feel who and what you're grateful for. It will be 100% different, right, Rue?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. What a wonderful idea. What a great way to start the day and end the day with some gratitude. It's like, hey, I woke up this morning. Everything in my life has been reset. I can start out fresh. And then at the end of the day, thank you that I made it through the day.
Now, in your book, you write a lot about being present. So can you tell us what you mean by being present?
It's not living our lives in the past or in the future. So whether it's the good times you once had, or the regrets you have from the past, or fears of the future. When I get the job of my dreams, I'll be happy. It's learning how to just be with what's happening right now. It's me being with you, talking about the book I wrote. It's not worrying about an interview I have tomorrow or something bad that happened to me yesterday. It's being with you and concentrating on what you're saying to me and responding to that, and not anticipating what I think you're going to say and going off in a completely different direction. It's taking this moment. And there's plenty of things written that says this moment is all that you have, live in the now. But this moment is all that we have, and we shouldn't come into it with baggage, and we shouldn't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow isn't given to anyone, right? We have right now, and that's what we all need to try to remember. We're okay right now. We feel fine right now. We have a roof over our heads right now. Let's appreciate that.
That is a great point. People also don't realize that you're living in the now. That's all there is, period, ever. Right? You have past nows, you have future nows. But if you're living in the now right now, and you're thinking about shit that happened in the past, you know what you're doing is you're bringing all that negative energy from the past into your right now moment. You're thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow and all the thoughts of fear. You're bringing that negative energy of fear, which is huge, into the right now. So now you've taken this perfectly beautiful moment of right now and you've degraded it by basically polluting it with all the negative energy of yesterday's and tomorrow's. So you don't get to enjoy the right now if you're living somewhere else. So leave it all outside of the right now as long and as often as you possibly can. We can't live in the right now every single moment of every single day. It's hard, I get it. But as much as possible, if you can spend, 15 minutes a day focusing on your right now, and then, maybe the next week do 30 minutes, the next week do an hour, and the next week 3 hours, it becomes a habit.
I think that's how you could teach yourself joy. If you're happy right now, if you know you have everything you need right now and you're safe right now, that's joy. That's it right there. That's joy.
Absolutely. And we don't have enough joy in our lives. Yes,
no.
The lesson of the day. That's right. Can you tell us, Ruhe, any advice that you have for getting through this coronavirus? What can people do, action-wise? What can people do to feel better and to feel less fear?
Stay positive. Know that what you're doing is protecting yourself and your family. Stay safe. We talked earlier about the difference between I'm stuck at home and I'm safe at home. Start saying the positive things, the glass half full. Take that stance. That will help you eliminate the stress. Just know that you're safe. Take every step that you need. Be positive and move forward. Move forward in the now. Finding joy with your family at home, with the time you can spend together, getting to know each other on a deeper level, knowing that the planet is healing as the world quiets down a bit. We can be really positive through this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Again, this is Ruhe Bayors, and the book she wrote is Soul Gardening. I highly recommend it. Again, it is beautiful and inspirational. It'll make you think, which I love. I love books that can make you think, especially if you have to think about some deeper things, deeper belief systems, because sometimes we believe things just because they've been taught to us. But I think now's the time to really figure out what your own beliefs are, what resonates within you sacredly, and I think soul gardening can help you find that. Again, you can use it kind of like a tarot card deck or the Bible, where you're having a tough time, having a tough day, flip to a chapter, read that chapter. That's exactly what you'll need to feel better in that moment. Thank you so much, Ruhe, for joining us. I am so, again, grateful that you were willing and that you have such a beautiful voice that you've been able to write down and give to the public and give back in a way that is just amazing and beautiful. Thank you so much, Ruhe.
I'm so grateful for the time on your podcast and for your listeners, and thank you so much.